All right, Europe is now closer to World War III than any other time in history since World War II. Now, this is not my opinion. This is literally the words of the Polish Prime Minister after Russia has violated their airspace with a drone attack. Things are heating up in Europe. Things are heating up in the Middle East. We are now seeing the wars and rumors of wars, nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom, begin to escalate on another level. So we're going to talk about this on tonight's podcast. Let's go.
The following program is brought to you by friends and partners of End Time Headlines.
All right, what's up, everybody? This is End Time Headlines, news and headlines from a prophetic perspective. We are now in the midweek. We are at Wednesday, September 10th. We want to welcome tonight's broadcast. Listen, do me a favor if this is your first time joining us. Maybe it's first time chiming in here in the chat or on YouTube, whatever the case may be. Let us know in the comments that you're new, where you guys are tuning in from. We'd appreciate that. I want to welcome you officially, and our admins want to welcome you as well. Guys, we've got a lot to cover today. So much stuff has transpired over the past 24, 48, 72 hours, even this week. Things are really heating up in Europe, and things are heating up in the Middle East. And consequently, this is all coming after we had those cessation of celestial events that we talked about. I think we kicked this off on, what was it, Monday night? I think it was Monday night's broadcast. We talked about the parade of planets. We talked about that blood moon. We talked about the geomagnetic storm, or the CME that was released that caused the auroras. And all this is culminating with Teshuvah on the Hebrew calendar. We are now officially into the UN General Assembly that kicked off yesterday. And this, again, will continue all the way to the end of this month. And since that last time we broadcasted about this, and we talked about how wars and all these things are escalating, now these things are going to another level. And we're going to cover all this in tonight's broadcast. Before we do that, help us out. Hit that like button. That's going to push us out there on Rumble, YouTube, and get people to hear and see our program. And if you'd like to keep up with this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell notification. That's going to assure you to do that. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of our content, we always want to encourage you to download our free app, and you can do that by visiting our app store, or your app store, depending on whatever device you got, Apple, Android. Then and you'll search for End Time Headlines, and you're going to see our official trademark logo. You'll see it right there on your screen. If you're listening by Apple or by Spotify, you'll see it. Type in End Time Headlines. It'll come up, and hit yes to push notifications once you download that, and you'll be able to get all of our content right there at your fingertips. So the intensity of global events and how they're moving forward is now breathtaking. We're seeing all across the globe, world leaders are talking about the need for peace, but yet peace is not coming. Instead, we're seeing the sudden destruction. We're seeing the wars escalate. We're seeing conflicts continue to mount. This month alone, we have seen a series of very alarming escalations. And we're only 10 days into the month of September, and we're going to cover what's happening right now. So let's talk about what's happening in Poland first. We'll go there. All right, let's go to the Middle East. Israel attacks Hamas leaders in Doha, drawing condemnation from Qatar over, quote, cowardly strike. We've got a little video on this. We're going to show you that.
Israel striking Qatar's capital of Doha. It happened yesterday afternoon, their time, targeting senior Hamas leaders involved in the Gaza ceasefire negotiations. President Trump says he was, quote, very unhappy about this as the deadly attack complicates a push to stop the war, but he understands why they did it. Eradicating Hamas is everyone's goal. Alex Hogan joins us live from London with the latest. Alex.
Hi, Brian. So Israel hit the headquarters of Hamas's political leadership in Doha. That is the capital of Qatar. Hamas says this attack right here that you see on your screen, this killed 5 of its members, including the son of top negotiator Khalil al-Hayya. Hamas says that its top leadership survived. One member of the Qatari security forces was also killed. Qatar, which has been a mediator throughout the war, condemned the strike on its soil, calling it an act of state terrorism and a blatant violation of international law.
Wow, that's a heavy statement right there.
President Donald Trump says while eliminating members of Hamas is a worthy goal, he warned that bombing Qatar, a sovereign nation and a close ally of the U.S., does not advance Israel or America's goals.
I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation. But I will say this, we want the hostages back, but we are not thrilled about the way that went down today. Very unhappy about every aspect.
So we are continuing to monitor some of the fallout after this strike in Doha. The European Union says it's going to put bilateral support to Israel on pause. We also know there's going to be a United Nations Security Council meeting today. That will take place at 3 p.m. Eastern time in New York. And President Donald Trump says he's expecting to give a full statement on all of this later today. Brian?
Now, the timing of this is interesting as well, because, again, in New York, where they're having this UN General Assembly meeting, it's Israel's the centerpiece. This is going to further push their notion to why there's a need for a Palestinian state. So you heard this, their bilateral efforts putting support on hold on Israel. You've got an emergency EU meeting regarding, there it is right there, EU putting support for Israel on hold. Then there's an emergency meeting. So this is again, it's intensifying, and Qatar called it an act of terrorism on their own soil.
All right, thanks so much, Alex. Let's bring in Qatar's foreign minister spokesperson, Majid Al-Ansari. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it, Doctor. What happens today with the talks that were scheduled for yesterday afternoon?
Thank you, Brian. I'm very happy to be with you again. Let me tell you very clearly, President Trump had a plan on the table. He wanted us to convey that plan to Hamas, and this is exactly the meeting that Prime Minister Netanyahu decided in this rogue state behavior to attack in a sovereign state like Qatar. The attack came at a time when the Hamas members were discussing Trump's proposal, and it sends a very clear message to the partners of the U.S., the allies of the U.S., and to those who are negotiating with other parties that they are not safe, even when they are discussing the plans for peace.
Doctor,
wow, that's a interesting statement what he just said right there.
Did you condemn the attacks on the bus station that killed 7 innocent people who had the audacity to wait for mass transportation?
I think, Brian, when our country's sovereignty was attacked by a state actor like Israel, our main concern right now is with our own national security, our own sovereignty, and the blatant attack on our sovereignty taken by a state that is a member of the European Union, of the international community.
But that group has had 2 years to negotiate after an attack on October 7th that you never condemned, to get their hostages out, innocent people starving to death.
October. Your information is incorrect.
Okay, October. Okay, so you have 20 people alive under the 7th
of October attack.
All right, come on, guys.
We did condemn these attacks and the blatant misinformation campaign by Prime Minister Netanyahu to try to put Qatar in the middle of this will not work. On the 7th of October, the leaders of Hamas were not in Doha. They were brought to Doha for the negotiations that were held between Hamas and Israel with the support of the United States.
But they live there in luxury.
Let me make it very clear again. On the 7th of October, the images of the Hamas leaders, that was not in Doha. It was somewhere else. They were brought to Doha to discuss the hostage release.
I didn't bring up the images.
But the misinformation by Prime Minister Netanyahu in order to justify this attack will not fly with the Qatari government. I'm very sorry.
True or false, before this meeting, they were supposed to live, the deal was essentially give up all the hostages for a ceasefire. And they said that this adds up. This offer is essentially, of course, they get Palestinian prisoners back. They said this offer adds up to capitulation. That was the premise leading up to this. And if you think that the relation between the bombing at the bus station hours before, which had to be green-lighted or at least okayed, certainly not condemned, by those people taking part in the negotiations, how do you expect Israel to take that?
How do you expect Qatar to take an attack on its sovereignty at a time when the meetings were in place under the supervision of the United States and Trump administration, with Envoy Witkoff engaged fully with our prime minister to make sure that the ideas that were presented by President Trump were put on the table? At that time, the meeting itself, according to the Israelis, was the target of the attack. How does that make us feel about the partnership with the United States over dealing with this issue? President Trump made it very clear he wants this war over, he wants peace, and he is working very closely with us on it. But obviously, Prime Minister Netanyahu does not want peace, does not want the U.S. to create peace in the region, and wants to create more chaos in the region and beyond.
You really think the offer of Hamas being able to leave, the releasing the hostages, is not something the prime minister wants?
Yes. And this is why he attacked every time there was a peace that was going to come across the corner. We've seen this happen at every interval of these talks. Wherever we get close to a deal, there is sabotage by Prime Minister Netanyahu to make sure that we are back to square one.
Right. It doesn't sound like you're a mediator there. It sounds like you're taking Hamas's side. Doctor, thanks so much for your time.
Well, when one of the parties decides to attack our sovereignty in a residential neighborhood where my countrymen, the residents of Qatar, live in schools and nurseries right next door, believe me, it's very difficult to maintain a very calm voice speaking to you.
One side drops flyers in order to save civilians, the other targets civilians, and we saw that October 7th. Thank you very much.
Well, I can assure you, no flyers were dropped on Doha at the time when they were attacking a residential neighborhood.
Hamas is the target, not Qatar. Thanks so much.
I know you have to always keep saying that, but this is the sovereignty of our country, and it's a residential neighborhood in Qatar. It is not Gaza. This is our country, and this is an attack on our sovereignty.
The target was Hamas, not Qatar. Thanks so much.
Okay. Anyway, guys, so you can see the tensions here. Trump said that he was not happy with this military strike carried out by Israel. You just heard there from Qatar and their leadership. They're not happy with this. They're calling this an act of terrorism. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about this? Do you think this is going to escalate even further? Now, how bad will this get? Well, look at this. Israel threatens to, quote, destroy Gaza City in a mighty hurricane of strikes. Quote, this is a final warning. Let's read this. Israel ominously vowed to destroy Gaza City in a mighty hurricane of strikes this past Monday, calling it a final warning to the murderers and perpetrators of Hamas. I'm not going to say this word right here because we don't want to get flagged here, but a mighty hurricane will strike the skies of Gaza City today, and the roofs of the terror towers will shake. Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz wrote on X. He went on to say, this is a final warning to the murderers and those of Hamas in Gaza and in the luxury hotels abroad. Release the hostages and lay down your weapons, or Gaza will be destroyed and you will be annihilated. Now, that was on Monday, and yesterday, the military strikes took place in Qatar, which is interesting. Let's read on here. The IDF is continuing with its plans, and we are, quote, preparing to expand the maneuver to defeat Gaza. The threat came after Trump fired off his own last warning to the militant group on this past Sunday, urging it to accept his terms for a ceasefire. The Israelis have accepted my terms. This is what Trump said. It is time for Hamas to accept it as well. Trump said on social media, quote, I have warned Hamas about the consequences of not accepting. This is my last warning. Is it though? How many warnings? Has anybody kept tabs on this? He's warned. I know this is at least 3 to 4 warnings. My last warning. This is the last time I'm telling you. I will not give any more warnings. Now he's saying again, this is my last warning. There will not be, quote, another one. He did not elaborate on what those terms were. And again, this comes after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered troops last month to capture Gaza City in a bid to wipe out the last remnants of the terror group if it does not release all the remaining hostages. Hamas said it would release some hostages for a, quote, temporary ceasefire. So here's this tit for tat and tit for tat back and forth. Netanyahu, however, is pushing for an, quote, all or nothing deal with Hamas, which he wants to release all the hostages and surrender. Meanwhile, Israel has ordered a full evacuation of Gaza City as Netanyahu warns, quote, this is only the beginning. Israel on Tuesday ordered a complete evacuation of Gaza City, home around 1 million Palestinians. Wow. This is all ahead of its controversial military takeover. Quote, to all residents of Gaza City and its neighborhoods from the old city and Tafah and in the east to the sea and the west, the IDF is determined to defeat Hamas and will operate in the Gaza City area with great force, just as it did throughout the Strip. The military's Arabic spokesperson made this statement yesterday, quote, for your safety, evacuate immediately via the Rashid axis toward the humanitarian zone in al-Mawasi. Leaflets carrying the message, which included a map directing residents across Gaza to travel westward to the coast before going south, were also dropped across the north. Here's a picture of one of those leaflets if you're watching the visual of this. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned Palestinians to evacuate Gaza City this past Monday, saying, quote, this is only the beginning of the intensified ground maneuver there. Again, this warning came hours after the military intensified airstrikes in the urban area. Israel has been targeting high-rise towers in the densely populated city in recent days as it moves forward with plans to occupy in defiance of domestic and international opposition. Now, while this is going on, guys, hundreds of thousands of Israelis have also taken to the streets to protest the planned takeover of the city, fearing that it would endanger the remaining hostages there and put the lives of soldiers at risk. The Israeli military has expanded operations in recent weeks to seize Gaza City, which it says it is key to defeating Hamas. It now claims control of about 40% of the enclave's largest city. All right, the report went on to say that as of today, only 70,000 Palestinians, which is less than 10% of Gaza City's roughly 1 million residents, have even evacuated. According to a senior Israeli official, making up less than 10% of the entire population. I want you to think about this. So out of 1 million residents, only 10% has evacuated. This could be a lot of casualties. A source familiar with the matter told CNN earlier that Israel was planning to halt humanitarian airdrops over Gaza City and reduce the entry of aid trucks in the northern part of the Strip, a move apparently designed to drive its residents to leave by depriving them access to food. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you something right here. I'm not trying to get into all the political part of this, but this right here, if this is true, and they do this all this is going to do is fuel ammunition for the United Nations and all of those nations that are already coming against Israel. Now, before we get all worked up about this, you got to remember, guys, this prophecy has to be fulfilled. Something has to drive us to Zechariah 12 for the fulfillment that all nations will come against Israel and attempt to heave her away. She'll be remember, Israel and Jerusalem will be the stumbling block. It will be the heavy stone that will be tried to be heaved away. All right, meanwhile, we're going to shift and go to Europe because things have really escalated in Europe. Because I know everybody wants to know about Poland and what's going on over there. We're going to get to that, but I want to show you this. I thought this was interesting. I don't know if y'all saw this, but look at this. Russia's mysterious Doomsday radio broadcast 2 new code words. Russia's mysterious Doomsday radio came to life this past Monday, sending out 2 cryptic voice messages to unknown listeners. What? The Cold War era shortwave station has been broadcasting a continuous monotonous buzzing sound since the 1970s. Located about 18 miles from Moscow, it is believed to be part of a secret military communications network, possibly even a fail-safe link to Russia's nuclear command center. Today, the usual buzzing was interrupted twice with cryptic messages in Russian consisting of numbers, names, or code words. Wow, what is this, guys? Well, let's see. Among them were NZHTI, a call sign the station has used before, and hotel, along with a string of numbers 38, 965, 78, 58, 88, 37, which some speculated could represent coordinates. Now, I know we've got in the chat, I know we have some former military, maybe active military, maybe vets, whatever the case may be. If you have any information on this, chime in, please, in the chat, in the comments. What is your thoughts on this? Do you agree? Is this a coordinates? What could these numbers, names, and code words mean? A video of the broadcast has flooded social media, where users are fearing something big is happening tonight. Now, keep in mind, this was Monday night, okay? And then I'm going to show you what happened on Tuesday. So it makes me wonder if this had something to do with what happened in Poland. But let me read on. Those code words sound straight out of a Cold War thriller. Who's listening and why now? One ex-user shared. While the broadcast seemed random, some experts believe the Russian government is using the radio station. One professor who teaches electronic and radio engineering at the City University of London suggested that the enigmatic broadcast has likely been kept active as a failsafe in case of nuclear war. Quote, it is almost certainly the Russian government that is using it, according to, again, this professor. If it is the Russian government, it would be for peaceful purposes. Now look at this. Freelance radio monitor Ari Bonder from Holland, who runs the website Numbers Oddities, has heard and entertained many theories about the signal over the years. Some say that it is an old Soviet dead man switch that triggers a nuclear attack on the West when it stops buzzing. Others say that it has a homing beacon for UFOs. Bowender continued, or a mind control device which the Russians can program your mind. So now we're getting into some tinfoil hat stuff here. Again, could it be a homing device for UFOs? Could it be a mind controlling device? Is it a Soviet dead man switch that triggers nuclear attack if it stops buzzing? In the past, it was said that it was a remote control station belonging to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Monday's messages will likely never be deciphered, but such signals have been released at bizarre times. So when was the last time these things were released? The last time was on May the 19th, when the U.S. President Donald Trump was speaking to President Vladimir Putin on the phone. The station transmitted 2 code messages. And I'm not going to read all this, guys. If you're watching, and I apologize to you guys, but listening by Apple or by Spotify, but that's a lot of numbers. And I don't know if there's any relevance even to read this, but it was a sequence of codes and numbers and letters. You guys watching the visual of this by YouTube, Rumble, there's the sequence of codes right there. Amateur ham radio operators and independent researchers first took a serious interest in a Doomsday radio, officially known by its original call sign UVB-76 in 1982. At that time, the station broadcast only a series of cryptic beeps. By 1992, the pattern evolved. Buzzing noises began repeating 25 times per minute, each lasting less than a second, occasionally accompanied by an ominous foghorn-like sound. Throughout the 90s, the buzzes were sporadically interrupted by anonymous male and female voices reading what appeared to be a list of random names, words, or numbers. The pitch and tone of the buzzing also varied, possibly encoding secret information through subtle and audio shifts. The odd variety of transmission is what drew Professor Stupples and other researchers to UVB-76 in the first place. According to him, the diversity of sounds is highly unusual for a basic emergency placeholder signal. A government or military agency simply trying to hold a frequency would typically broadcast a repetitive, simple tone or task pattern. Instead, UV-76 transmit complex, unpredictable signals and does so with enormous power, reportedly using thousands of watts and broadcasting in the directions based on Professor Stupple's measurements. So, again, I would love to hear from our military, former military, vets, service members, whatever the case may be. Maybe you have some insight into this. Love to hear your comments in the chat, in the comments on YouTube, Rumble, wherever you're watching or listening from. If you're listening by Apple or by Spotify, we'd love for you to come over. If you have a military background, maybe you know a little bit of information on this, come over here to our YouTube channel, subscribe, get into the chat, get a part of these, be a part of these dialogues, because we have some very interesting dialogues that take place during these podcasts. All right, so all that weird stuff was going on Monday, but then we had this. Russia's unprecedented violation of Poland's airspace branded an act of war as Poland plans response. Wow. And Zelensky issues a dire warning. All right, here's another headline. Zelensky urges, quote, joint air defense with Europe after Russian drones downed in Poland. Here's another headline. Polish Prime Minister says that Europe is, quote, closer to war than any time since World War II after this airspace violation. All right, so let's get up to par with this.
It's on high alert after NATO warplanes shoot down Russian drones that flew deep into Polish airspace. Chief correspondent, foreign correspondent Trey Yingst joins us live from Kyiv. Trey.
Yeah, Brian, good morning. Overnight, Russia launched another massive attack against Ukraine, but this time sent 19 drones into Poland. The incident triggered a NATO response with fighter jets scrambling from Western Europe to assist. Polish officials say at least 4 of the drones were shot down as the country briefly closed its airspace and diverted flights from major airports. The Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk released a statement following the incident saying, quote, my thanks and congratulations to the Polish Operational Command and our NATO pilots for shooting down Russian drones over Poland. Actions speak louder than words. Tusk has now invoked Article 4 of NATO, meaning that consultations will take place with NATO members about a security assessment and a possible response. You can see some of the damage caused by this drone incursion in the aftermath video taken from eastern Poland. The EU condemned this event, with the Commission president saying this.
And just today we have seen a reckless and unprecedented violation of Poland and Europe's airspace by more than 10 Russian Shahid drones. Europe stands in full solidarity with Poland.
In addition to the events in Poland, Ukraine came under heavy bombardment with more than 400 Russian drones and 20 missiles. Brian?
All right, Trey, that is amazing. They basically won after a NATO ally. So I don't know how long we're going to sit on the sidelines with this. Right. Trey Yingst, thanks.
All right, now that was Fox News. Now let's go over here to the left wing, CNN, and see what they have to say.
Breaking news out of Poland. The military there accusing Moscow of an act of aggression after Polish and NATO forces scrambled to shoot down Russian drones that violated its airspace. Prime Minister Donald Tusk has confirmed a military response operation is underway following multiple airspace violations. Polish and NATO jets were scrambled following reports from Ukraine's Air Force that Russian drones were headed towards the country's airspace. During the incident, Polish authorities shut down several major airports, including Warsaw International, and urged its citizens.
Now, I did see I saw some comments on social media saying that some believe that Putin intentionally did this to try to test the response of Poland and NATO. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, in the chat. Do you agree with that assessment? What's going on here? What is Putin itching for war, global war, World War III? Is he wanting this? Is this what he's pushing here? What's going on here?
To stay indoors. The exact number of Russian drones over Poland remains unclear. We're joining us now for more is CNN military analyst and retired U.S. Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Thanks so much for joining us.
You bet, Linda. Always good to be with you.
So this marks the first time Poland has taken direct military action against airborne threats from Russia crossing into its territory since the war began. Just how significant is this moment?
It's very significant, Linda. One of the key aspects of this is the fact that the Poles felt compelled to shoot down at least some of the drones. Now, we don't know, as you mentioned, how many drones or even where they actually fell in Polish territory, but it's pretty clear from some of the postings that we've seen from Polish government officials that drone fragments can be found on Polish territory. So the Polish authorities are looking for those drone fragments. They've asked people to make sure that they stay away from those fragments, but that they inform the police that those fragments are there and that they can actually be located. So the Poles are obviously a frontline state. They're clearly sensitive to this kind of violation of their airspace. And it really marks the first time that there's been a concerted effort, not by the Russians, to potentially take their drones into Polish airspace, but also a concerted effort by the Poles to respond with strength to these kinds of actions by purportedly by the Russians. So it's a major change in the tenor of the basically frozen conflict that has existed between Poland and Russia up until this point.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't the first airspace violation by Russian drones, but certainly the first time Poland has activated its air defenses, scrambled its fighter jets. From a military perspective, what does this reveal about Poland's readiness to respond?
Well, what it looks like, at least right now, is that the Poles have a very heightened state of alert. And, obviously their alert phase has increased quite a bit because of the incursion of these drones. But the fact that they were able to respond so quickly indicates that they were already in a heightened state of alert. And that very fact is, I think, symptomatic of them being a frontline state, basically because they border both Ukraine and Belarus. Ukraine, of course, engaged in the war with Russia, Belarus, a Russian ally. And it also shows that with heightened tensions, there's an exercise that the Russians are going to be conducting with Belarus starting on Friday. That is going to also cause the Poles to have heightened readiness state and heightened alert state. They've closed the border with Belarus, and that also indicates that they have been looking at this for quite some time from an intelligence perspective and, of course, from a force deployment perspective as well.
So what's your perspective on Russia's objective? Is it deliberately provoking NATO, testing its rules of engagement?
When you look at the way the Russians have conducted these kinds of operations, you have to suspect that there is a deliberate approach that they're taking here. And that deliberate approach in this case would very much be to test Polish defenses. They want to see how quickly the Poles respond to these kinds of actions, what kinds of measures they take, what kind of jets are they scrambling, how often, from which airports, from which air bases.
All right, stop, guys. Now, do you not think that's interesting that Monday night you had that weird those sequence of codes, that Morse code that was released. Let me see if I can pull this back up again. I want to make sure I get this right. This Doomsday Radio broadcast 2 new code words that has not been nothing has changed since the 1970s. But then on Monday, this sequence of codes. And let's read this again. Let me go back over here and see if we can pull this up. So among them were the NZHTI and hotel, along with these numbers right here, 38, 965, 78, 58, 88, 37. And some say, could this be some kind of a coordinates? Was this in relation to this violation of Poland, of sending these drones out to, quote, test their defense systems? Was this connected with this? I think this is intriguing because, and it's also alarming at the same time, because are they warming up? Now, I say this based upon, y'all remember we talked about this. Now, I want to bring our listeners to remembrance that was this a cryptic warning? Like, do they know that this is happening? Has Europe been given information, or maybe through their intelligence or whatever the case may be, that they know this is coming? Look at this. And again, this was published last week, and we talked about this on a previous podcast, but French hospitals have been told to, quote, prepare for war in Europe by next year in leaked government letter. So again, according to this, a leaked government letter told them to prepare for war. Now, let me pull this up. Just in the event that somebody may have missed that podcast, let's reiterate this. French hospitals have been told to prepare for a potential armed conflict in Europe by next year. Some sources say by March 2026, so the spring of next year, they're anticipating. And a letter sent to regional health agencies revealed by again, this is a source out of France, the Ministry of Health asked hospitals to, quote, prepare for a major military engagement by March of next year. The newspaper warned that between 10,000 and 50,000 men could be expected in hospitals over a period of 10 to 180 days. All right, stop. Again, let's think about this, guys. Let's just say hypothetically that this is true. If this assessment is true, this government letter, this warning is true, then here we are in September. We could see a full scale, we could be involved in a major war. Now I say we as in the nations of the world, including America, including the West, involved in this. And it would be dragged out into the spring of next year because they're saying that they're being told to prepare for an armed conflict in Europe by next year. They didn't say it would be next year. They said by next year. So anytime between now and March of 2026, look at this. They're expecting somewhere between, look at this, 10 to 50,000 men hospitalized over a period of 10 to 180 days. Quote, in the current international context, it is necessary to anticipate, look at this, to anticipate the modalities of health support in situations of high intensity conflict. This was the Ministry of Health. Health Minister Catherine Vautrin did not deny the details outlined in the letter or its existence. This was in an interview with a French broadcaster. It's part of preparation, like strategic stockpiles, like epidemics. He told the broadcaster, quote, I wasn't in office at the time of COVID. Remember, there were no words harsh enough to describe the country's lack of preparedness. It is perfectly normal for the country to, quote, anticipate crisis and the consequences of what is happening. This is part of the responsibility of central government. The letter was dated the 18th of July and reportedly said France could form the rear base for large-scale conflict in coming months. It added that the Ministry of Health is considering setting up medical center near ports of airports so that soldiers can be redirected to their home countries. Now, the document came only months after France outlined plans to send a 20-page survival manual to every household. Now, again, this also came on the heels of that, what they called an apocalypse alarm or alert or something like that went out through all of the UK. This happened on Sunday. Let me go back to this. The manual reportedly laid out instructions on preparation for an imminent threat, including natural disaster, health crisis, or armed conflict. It suggested items should have as part of a, quote, survival kit, including at least 6 liters of bottled water, 10 cans of food, and a torch, which, by the way, that's like a flashlight, batteries, and medical supplies, including saline solution, compresses, and paracetamol. One section of the manual recommended closing doors in the event of a nuclear accident. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the wars and rumors of wars have now bumped up another level. We could see some nasty stuff happening both in the Middle East and in Europe simultaneously. And this doesn't even include the stuff that's going on in America, with some saying that we're on the precipice of a civil war, with what's going on with the National Guards being deployed in the streets of major cities in America, the situation with Venezuela that's becoming very tumultuous, and who knows how that's going to escalate. So we've got a lot on the table here, guys, that we're paying attention to. And all this is happening right now while we're in the season of Teshuvah, the season of repentance, on the Hebrew calendar. We're only a couple weeks away until the new year of the Hebrew calendar. We enter into the new year of Rosh Hashanah. Again, they do not commemorate the new year according to the Gregorian calendar like we do in January, but they enter into in the month of September, again, when they go into that feast. So a lot is on the table. A lot's happening. We're still anticipating what's going to come out of the UN General Assembly in New York, what's going to happen with Israel, and what these resolutions are going to be, what's going to come of that. So we're going to keep you all up to date with that and the par and the latest that comes out of all these situations. So again, that's why we always want to tell you, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification, download our free app if you haven't done that yet. And so you can keep up with this. And I want to leave you, as always, with Luke 21:28. Jesus said, when you begin to see all of these things coming to pass, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. EndTimeHeadlines.org, EndTimeHeadlines.com. Be sure, again, bookmark our main website. Pick up your free app today. Again, it's absolutely free. Download it. Hit yes to push notifications. And if this ministry blesses you, it informs you week after week after week, whatever your relationship is with this ministry, we want to encourage you to pray about becoming a monthly partner. You can do that two different ways. You can do it by electronic ways, electronic giving, which is various ways of doing that all over the website, and Cash App, PayPal. There's so many different ways to do that. Or you can give by check or money order right there on the screen. End Time Headlines, P.O. Box 1391, Monroe, Georgia, 30655. So we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Listen, let me give you a shout out to all of our partners. I want to make this point across everybody, because most of our partners listen to our programs. If you are a giver by check, money order, by mail, and we don't, and many of you guys may or may not know this, but we do not send out donor letters. So I just don't want anybody to have expectations that I'm going to personally write back a letter or whatever the case. The reason why we don't do this, guys, is simple. Is because I made the mistake of years, and I don't want to say mistake, but I've given to ministries before, okay? And I am still trying to stop letters, physical letters, donor letters, emails that flood my inbox and flood my mailboxes, because I get bombarded with this stuff. And I knew early then in our ministry when we launched, I did not want to do that. I don't want to be sending you a flood of letters and this. So we don't do that. We don't send you emails and donor letters. So I just don't want you to think, well, Brother Ricky is rude. He's ignoring us. No, we get your letters. I read every letter. I read all the emails. I read these things. And many times I respond on emails, but like physical letters of writing letters, I just don't do that. We don't send out letters like that and donor letters. Some of you guys are on Telegram. I'll reach out to you there. If I recognize you there, I will talk now. But you got to be careful with that, because we have spammers that will personally message you on Telegram, and that's not me. So you'll know I will give it away if it's me. Most of the time you reach out to me on Telegram and I respond. I don't directly reach out to you. So again, I just wanted to clarify that and let you know that we appreciate all of our partners and supporters and givers of our ministry, the cards, the letters, the gifts, and everything that you guys send us, and you support us week after week, or monthly, or partnerships or whatnot. So from all of us at End Time Headlines, we appreciate you, we love you, and thank you for your generous support. So guys, we're going to sign off for tonight on this 10th of September. Tomorrow, we plan on being here Thursday night, 9/11, anniversary of 9/11, 24 years. Unbelievable. We'll be here tomorrow night. This may be our whole topic of conversation. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We may briefly cover that, but there's something else I want to talk about. Some news that broke yesterday, and I was going to talk about that tonight, but I didn't do that because of all this stuff happening. So I want to bump that out and maybe talk about that tomorrow, but we'll figure it out. Either way, we're going to be here 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on our YouTube channel, and then on Rumble at 9 p.m. Eastern. because we usually try to put that up after this broadcast. So until we see you guys on the next one, we love you. We appreciate you. We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to the End Time Headlines podcast. We pray that you've been blessed and equipped by today's message. For more information about how you can help partner with our ministry, please visit endtimeheadlines.org.